Greetings. Welcome to the Morning Breadcast. I am Mark Christian, your host with Digging for End Time Truths, and we are on a quest this week to go through the churches of Revelation in chapters 2 and chapters 3 as we continue in our Revelation study. We have covered 2 so far. We have covered the church at Ephesus and the church at Smyrna. Today we are going to cover the church that is at Pergamum. And this is a very interesting one because as we follow through with this, we will note that, remember what I said, that this is a prophetic outline of the church history. So, you could debate it if you want, but the churches line up exactly as what the church went through in the past. That's why it's for us to look at. That's why it says in the first chapter of the book of Revelation that this is a prophecy. Okay, write down, John, the words of this prophecy. Okay, so we have covered 2 churches. The first church, which was the church at Ephesus, which was the beginning, the birth of the church, the apostles. Remember, it said you try those who say they are apostles and are not. And then the second church was after the apostles' age, persecution began to come. Remember, John was the last one, and he was persecuted, sent to the island of Patmos, and that's how this book got written, actually. So it's important to note that we are now, what Satan could not do with persecution, he now tries to do with the church joining into the world. And that's what this Pergamos is going to be about, right? So we are going to pick it up in Revelation chapter 2 and verse 12. Remember, the church of Pergamos is where the church now becomes part of the government. And see if you can pick up as we read through this what Jesus says about that. What do you think Jesus talks about as the world? We're going to see. So here we go. Revelation chapter 2, and we'll start in verse 12. And to the angel of the church in Pergamos write, these things says he who has a sharp two-edged sword. I know your works and where you dwell, where Satan's throne is. And you hold fast to my name, and did not deny my faith, even in the days in which Antipas, my faithful martyr, who was killed among you, where Satan dwells. But I have a few things against you, because you have there those who hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to put a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed to idols and to commit sexual immorality. Verse 15. Thus you also have those who hold the doctrine of the Nicolaitans, which thing I hate. Verse 16. Repent, or else I will come to you quickly, and I will fight against them with the sword of my mouth. 17. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To him who overcomes, I will give some of the hidden manna to eat, and I will give him a white stone, and on the stone a new name written, which no one knows except him who receives it. Okay, so there's a lot of takeaways from this. First of all, remember, this is the time in the church's history where the church began to become part of the state. Actually, Christianity became the religion of the state at that point. It's the 3rd century, right? So, remember, Jesus says, you dwell where Satan dwells. Okay? That's the world. And he tells them that although that they are in this place, there are some of them that are holding fast, right? You're holding fast his name, and they are not denying the faith. So there are some really strong people in this church, and there are some that are not. Right? I want you to note also that he mentions it in verse 15. You also have those who hold the doctrine of the Nicolaitans. Where did we hear that before? That was the very first church in Ephesus, where we noted that the Nicolaitans means, Nico means to rule, Laetan means the laity. So now what used to be those who tried to bring it on, and the first church fought against it, this church welcomed it, right? So now we have the doctrine of the Nicolaitans, which is in full form now by the 3rd century. And it's actually in the church because now you've got the church as part of the government. And they, of course, when the church is part of the government, you have You have a staff, you have buildings, you have all kinds of things, and you get away from the actual. None of those things are evil of themselves, but it begins to lead you away from the true meaning of what church was created to be, right? So he right and commends them, saying that even though they live in the midst of evil, they haven't denied him, which is great. But he tells them that they hold bad teaching and bad doctrine in the midst and allow idols and fornication. So as you get into this church, you see not only does it become part of the system, but they begin to take on some of the sins of the system, right? This is a sounding an alarm that any practice which puts you before Jesus is a road to destruction. And once again, Jesus gives us fair warning with this church, right? That such ways lead to a separation from him, and he calls on anyone that is practicing such things to repent and to come back to him, right? Very, very important takeaway for this church that we're studying today, the Church of Pergamos. So what's the takeaway? Well, first of all, we're living if the church is part of the government and the government is guiding where it's going, it's not a great place to be. We need to have a relationship with him. In and of itself, being part of it is not the sin. It's letting those things allow you to get pulled away from Christ himself, right? So the takeaway is stand strong, keep your relationship strong. Don't allow the Nicolaitans, or don't allow any doctrine that pulls you away from Christ to put a stumbling block or a hindering in between your relationship between you and Jesus, right? Keep that strong, because that is the most important thing, right? So I want to leave it there today. Another great nugget to take away. Keep your relationship with Jesus strong. And thanks for joining me today in the morning Breadcast. And we will see you again tomorrow. God bless and have a wonderful day.